Hello and welcome to this short video about using the AP Research Resource Guide from UNCG Libraries. Usually, the AP Research class from Western Guilford High School comes to UNCG Libraries and spends some time at Jackson Library to do some research during the fall semester. However, this fall semester of 2020, we have lots of restrictions in place because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm providing this video so that you'll know a little bit about what resources we do have available for you to use virtually. At the end of this video, I hope that you'll feel confident about locating the AP Research Resource Guide maintained by our libraries. I hope that you'll consider primary sources as objects of research and analysis and feel comfortable locating those sources online. And I hope that you'll also discover some options for locating secondary scholarly sources online as well. The most important thing for you to remember from this video is that you can access all of these resources on the AP Research Guide at uncg.libguides.com/AP-research. So I'm going to access that AP Research Guide just by clicking the link that I have set up here, which takes me to the guide itself. Again, that's at uncg.libguides.com/AP-research. On the Home tab, you'll find this video, some basic information about getting in touch with us, some citation resources for some of the most popular citation styles that we see in different disciplines, some resources from writing centers at different universities about how to write literature reviews, and a few sample research articles that we've included here. These articles are all available through ProQuest via NC Live. So if you follow the instructions under each article to see these examples, you're going to want to make sure that you have a North Carolina library card or have access to a North Carolina library card to be able to log in. So when you have that information with you, you can click these links and follow the instructions below, and then you will be able to see some examples of a historical research article, a literary criticism research article, and a social science research article example. Now again, since we are in fall 2020 right now, we're limited more so than usual in what we are able to do in terms of our actual original and primary research. So I want to encourage you to think about finding primary sources as an option for your research and analysis. This Finding Primary Sources tab has some basic information about primary sources and what they are, as well as how to find them, has an infographic I've created for UNCG students that I think is still relevant here, explaining that what constitutes a primary source actually differs depending on what discipline that you're in. But often when we're talking about primary sources in the context of research, we're talking about historical sources. So on this guide, I have links out to either, again, freely available or available with an NC Live login, resources that you can use to locate primary sources. So I'm looking in this case at primary sources being things like newspaper articles, primary texts like books or other types of textual sources, also images, letters, diaries, all kinds of different stuff. So really anything that is a historical primary source that also may or may not be kind of a first-hand account. And I have the resources on this guide broken up. So you can see that this box, there's this general archives and collections box, which is a good place to start. I have a box on historical primary sources on Greensboro, North Carolina, and the Southern United States, all with links out to different sources. And each of these resources is described underneath, so you can kind of get a sense of what you can expect to find there. Some historical primary sources on North America, and then some historical primary sources on international topics. Now, I just have a few things in the North America and international topics right now, because many of the students that I have worked with AP research in the past tend to focus more locally with their primary source research, but I will try to add some more resources to this guide as I see things that might be interesting. So when you are using this guide, again, pretty much everything on this particular Finding Primary Sources tab is a freely available resource from the internet. So you'll be able to get into it without any logins, and you'll be able to browse through or search for specific primary source content. Finally, I want to point out this Finding Secondary Sources tab here, where we have a lot fewer links, but we do have some pretty important information here about how you can locate secondary scholarly sources if you are looking for more of those. So you see, again, this first link is to NC Live. I want to go ahead and just demonstrate NC Live. I am already logged in. You can see up here in the top right, it says Greensboro Public Library logged in. I logged in with my personal Greensboro Public Library card. And at this point, if I want to start doing some research, I can go with their sort of big search box here, or I can kind of browse by different types of information. So I'm going to say I need some articles. And I see their most recommended is ProQuest Central. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and go there. I like ProQuest Central. It's something I use with my students at UNCG as well. And I often recommend just going straight to the advanced search when you can. So I am going to just give you an example search here. One of the resources that I've highlighted on the primary sources tab is called Civil Rights Greensboro, and it is a primary source collection with all kinds of awesome stuff related to the history of civil rights in Greensboro, North Carolina. So if I now want to find some scholarly secondary sources about that same topic, this might be a place that I want to start. So I could do a broader search. I could say civil rights, and you may notice that I'm putting that in quotation marks. That forces a phrase search so that when I am doing this search for civil rights, it's looking for those two words in that order. So I want everything that has to do with civil rights that also, that's where this and comes in, that also has to do with Greensboro. So I want to make sure now that when I do a search, anything that comes back should have to do with civil rights and the city of Greensboro. So let's see what we get here. I imagine it's probably going to be a lot of sources. 19,701. That is a lot. So there are a couple of things I can do here at this point. I can narrow things down by publication date. I can narrow to a publication type. So in this case, maybe I just want scholarly journals. But even that still has over 1,100. So what I might do is something like focus on a particular incident. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to build in an additional component to my search. And once again, I'm going to use the word and that is going to allow me to add a new term to further narrow things down. So I'm going to focus on the specific incident of the sit-ins. So the sit-ins you're probably familiar with happened in February of 1960. Sometimes you hear this referred to as the sit-ins with the Greensboro Four, but I have a feeling that if I use sit-in, it will help me at least narrow things down a bit with my search here. So I started with 1,100 and I'm down to 230. I might do something even more specific here. I can keep adding my ands. You notice I put them in all caps. And what that does is it lets the database know that I am looking for those to serve as search connectors and not search terms. So I've got civil rights and Greensboro and sit-in, and I'm actually going to add Women's College. And that's what UNCG was named at the time. It was still the Women's College of the University of North Carolina. And there were a couple of women from the Women's College who were involved in this. I could also leave that off. There are also people from Bennett College who were involved in this. So if I want to add Bennett College to see if I get resources about that, some pretty amazing stuff looks like it's coming up. So I'm just going to click on one of these as an example. I'll start with the first one. The first one's not always best, but it's a place to start. I'm going to first read this abstract here. An abstract is very well worth the read. When you're looking at a scholarly research article, they're often going to be very lengthy and they may be dense and use a lot of academic language. So knowing from the abstract that you're likely to find what you need in the source can help you kind of get the inspiration you need to get through that reading process. So in this case, it looks like it tells me that this article is going to talk about the protest activities of the Black female students at Bennett College, and specifically talking about their role in civil rights and desegregation of public accommodations in Greensboro. So that sounds great. That sounds like something I could use to expand on my knowledge of the Greensboro sit-ins and the civil rights movement specifically. And I can read through this here. I can also find the full text PDF back up at the top. When a PDF is available, that's usually easier for citation purposes, because if you're writing your paper and you want to, give some kind of quote from this particular source, then you would be able to know exactly what page that was on. If you want to be able to cite this source, there is a cite button right here, and you can choose the citation style that you're using. So this is history, and a lot of times history uses Chicago style, notes and bibliography. So I'm going to click on that, and this is going to give me something I can work with for a citation style. Now this is not going to be perfect. For example, here you can see the whole thing is in caps for the title. And that is not ideal. We don't actually want all caps there. We want to clean that up so that it fits in with Chicago style. But this gets you started, and it helps you kind of figure out the pieces that you need. You're likely going to need to do some tweaking to know that you have the most accurate citation. And you can use the citation resources on the home tab of your research guide for help there. The other thing I want to recommend at this point is that you either download the PDF of the article to save it or email it to yourself. You will not always be able to get back to this source using what you see up here. This may work later and it may not, so even if I bookmarked this source, it would not necessarily be there for me later on. So I recommend either just downloading the PDF so you know you have a copy, or sending yourself an email that will give you a more sort of stable link. It tells me right here, a permanent link is included with each emailed document. So that was a lot of information in a pretty short time, but my main things that I want you to take away from this is that you can get to that AP Research Guide, uncg.libguides.com/AP Research. Have I said it enough times? Hopefully it's burned into your memory now. One thing that I want to make sure to address though is that your most important resource for your AP research assignments is really your teacher. So if you have questions about your topic or about what sources are appropriate to use, I do recommend that you start with Ms. Long. UNCG libraries are definitely here to help you find sources through our virtual chat service. We are available virtually at go.uncg.edu/chat. But I do want to suggest that if you decide to use that chat service, that you make sure you let us know right away that you're not a UNCG student. That will help us make sure that we're not linking you to sources that you won't be able to have access to. So I hope that this video and this guide are helpful to you as you are conducting your research for your AP research class. And hopefully next year we'll be back in the classroom at Jackson Library.